Confederate flag owners of Reddit, why do you own display your flag? Serious. It isn't displayed, but my dad has a flag that's the Confederate flag and the Union flag woven together that one of my long dead relatives made because we had family members that fought for both sides. My parents were ignorant Canadians who really liked the Dukes of Hazzard. It's not on display. Canadian here. It's actually kinda shocking how often I see rebel flags around my town. Nobody does it for sectarian reasons or whatever. People just thinks that it looks cool and signifies how much of a redneck they are. My dad owns a couple, but he's a Civil War buff, so they are purely for historical purposes. He doesn't display them publicly, just in his Civil War room. This is totally legit. One of my good friend's dad is a World War II history buff and has some genuine Nazi officer knives and pins displayed in their living room. He is a retired Navy SEAL and incredibly patriotic, so obviously this just memorabilia, but a few of our mutual friends have expressed that it bothers them. I can't see it. I bought mine at Gettysburg when I was 12. I collect flags. I have 3 Confederate flags. I have the battle flag everyone is familiar with, the Bonnie Blue, and the first Confederate States flag, which is the flag with which the moniker stars and bars goes with historically. The only one I've ever flown on my flagpole is the Bonnie Blue because most folks don't even know it is. I tend to fly historical flags on days of significance. My grandfather was a huge Civil War buff and has handed me down some other items that have the Confederate battle flag on it. I keep them for personal reasons, not because of hate. Let me preface this with the fact that my dad loves cars. I have fond childhood memories of me in primary school helping him change the oil. I am also Asian. Dad was a stereotypical racer, modding the crap out of Toyota Supras, Honda Civics, etc. Before he passed, he left me his favorite car, a Dodge Challenger, styled after the General Lee. It's bright orange with a Confederate flag on the roof. When I drive it, I like to pretend he's with me still. Oh, I'm sorry for your loss. I'm totally jealous of your car though. I had one up when I was younger, but we called it a rebel flag. We never associated any racist intentions with it. It was just a flag to show you were a rebel, someone who didn't follow the rules, and were proud of it. It wasn't until later that I learned of the sectarian implications. I just bought a bunch for when you can't buy them anymore. I'm a flag speculator. What? They're not even pushing towards that. They're trying to get it to not be flown at a government level. Citizens can still do as they please. You can fly a Nazi flag here too if you want. I have one because I like it. It hangs in my garage next to North Korea, Nazi Germany, Iran and Imperial Japan. Those hang next to USA, South Korea, Soviet Union, Israel, Great Britain, Canada, China and Germany. I just like flags and it makes my garage more interesting to me. Flags are cool. Mine I got as a commemoration when I went to Gettysburg. It was the 150th anniversary, and I figured since we already have an American flag, why not buy a little yard flag as a keepsake? It even says Gettysburg 150th anniversary on it. I live in Louisiana, and while the flag was reproposed by Southern Dixiecrats in the 50s and 60s as a symbol of hatred, for the majority of the population it represents Southern pride and way of life. There are definitely some who see it and say the South will rise again, but most of us view it in the same light as a fish and game fleur-de-lis. It's about heritage and pride, about where you came from, regardless of what it was reproposed to mean. I have one at my house, but I'm liberal and voted for Obama, if that says anything. Your last comment made me think of some comedian that said, "I'm not sectarian, I have a black president." Because I'm half black and like trolling people. Also Dukes of Hazzard. Best answer in here. I have one framed in my basement along with copies of letters from Southern troops. I grew up in rural North Carolina. I don't think most people understand just how most don't use it as xenophobia. It's the one thing that reminds me of my roots and where I came from. I suppose I could always hang a tobacco leaf lol. I have had black friends over who give me that WTF look. They know I'm not racist, but it still surprises them. I don't blame them. I know what that flag means to them. I also know what it means to me. And no, I don't think it has any place on government property. To fly it on the back of your truck is one thing, To fly it on state property is another. My family owns a Confederate flag because my great-great-great-grandpa fought in the Civil War. He didn't own slaves as he was poor as dirt, but he still fought to defend his homeland. I personally think that's extremely honorable. This is the fact that a lot of people don't get. Most of the men that fought in the Civil War were fighting only because Northern troops were marching through their homes and burning their crops. Like several in here, I inherited mine from my grandfather when he passed, who got it from his grandfather. It's an old flag and has been in the family since probably the Civil War, if not shortly following it. I don't hang it in my truck or anything, but I have it hanging in my bedroom with all my other flags I've gathered from around the world. I'll probably give it to my grandson one day as well. I honestly just like the way it looks. My ancestors were Southerners who fought for the Confederacy. Yes, some of them were probably slave owners. Some of my family lives in SE, are fairly wealthy and educated, just to go ahead and get the ignorant trashy redneck stereotype out of the way, and have flown Confederate flags at one point or another. It's just representative of our ancestry and our heritage. I've never personally flown it, but I do get why some people do it. It's an identity thing. TBH. There were those north of the Mason-Dixon line who owned slaves too. The South was economically dependent on slavery at the time in order to function properly, so while I obviously don't condone it now, I do see why they would try and fight to keep it going when it was a very common idea back then that blacks were inherently inferior both south and north of the Mason-Dixon line. I remember hearing my great-grandmother talk about getting a little boy to help with stuff around the house, and that was the side of my family that was from the north. She was born roughly at the turn of the century. I get that these days it's associated with xenophobia, but both countries under both flags have histories of a lot of xenophobia. I get why the Confederate battle flag gets a bad rep since it's associated with the KKK and whatever other sectarian movements happened around the country. There are plenty of us who just see it as something representing what our ancestors fought for though, and where our heritage comes from. Because it represents a time when, whether or not anyone agrees with the reason, a group of people in their states came together and told the federal governments to go frick themselves. This is always a good soundbite, but the federal government has done some pretty good things as well. You know, landed on the moon, defeated the Nazis. We've got a bunch of historical crap here. Confederate flag, Soviet military uniforms, Nazi weapons, that sort of thing. My dad's into history, Soviet Russian artifacts mostly. If there ever is a proper US-Russian war, it wouldn't surprise me if he was questioned as a sympathizer as much of this as he has, especially since he has some respect for the way Putin rules his country. My dad owns one, but he doesn't display it due to the implications of it being sectarian. He says it just reminds him of his parents who grew up in the South. I asked him about it again. He said that his ancestors fought for the South even though they weren't slave owners, and the flag is a symbol for fighting for way of life. I have one, but it's not displayed. I don't view it as a sectarian symbol any more than I view the American flag as a symbol for genocide, war, death, internment camps, mass imprisonment, or the training and funding of third world death squads. If we really wanted to get nitpicky about things, we should pull down all American flags because the United States has done far worse things than the Confederacy ever attempted. I no longer hold this opinion on the struck out portion. After a lot of thinking and discussion about this, I altered my opinion slightly. I fully recognize that in the eyes of many Americans, the Confederate battle flag is a symbol of xenophobia and repression. I have thrown my old flag away, which was stored in a box in the attic, and will no longer defend the Confederate battle flag as a symbol of heritage. What finally made me change my point of view was looking at a Nazi flag someone had put on an Ellen Pao post. I started wondering if I could possibly apply my argument that flags only have the meaning someone attaches to them to that flag. I couldn't defend my argument that while some might find it objectionable, someone else could see something different in it. So I have abandoned my previous belief about the Confederate flag. However, it does not change my opinion about the American flag. The United States has done a lot of terrible things in this world, and in my opinion far worse than it has done good. Wrapping yourself in an American flag and ignoring the evil is just as bad as wrapping yourself in a Confederate flag and ignoring the evil. I'm not saying we should get rid of the American flag, but we should, and must, confront the evil that has been carried out under that banner, and have an honest and open discussion about what our nation has done, is doing, and should do in the future. Far worse things. Family history. We had two brothers fight on both sides of the war. The Confederate brother survived the war, and my family has been proud of that for a long time. I'm from South Carolina, and I have a rebel flag on the back on my car. For me, it's about 70% Southern pride, and 30% it's an awesome looking flag. After the Charleston shooting, I took it off. Not because I think it's a sectarian symbol, but because there is a chance that someone in the car behind me doesn't get pee off. I'll probably put it back on when this whole thing blows over. I really think that if you are not from or lived in the South, then you can't really understand what the flag means. And it honestly is not some journalist's place to say it should come down from the state house if they have never even lived here and understood its meaning. It's not a racist symbol, but it's been used by some bad people that way. I have relatives from both sides of my family who fought for the Confederacy. It stands to me as a symbol that a state's rights should overpower those of a federal government, and if the federal government ever reaches too far, we have the right to address this and take action. I currently have one on my 1968 Charger. I think the next couple of weeks is going to be interesting if I take it out to drive. I bought one as a joke a couple years back. It hangs in my room. My husband has one. It was a gift from his mother because he's a redneck. Dang to shoot. I have 3 municipal quality flags. They are all very high quality flags. 1. US flag. 2. Confederate flag. 3. POWMIA flag. I have owned these flags for more than 30 years. The US and POWMIA flags I took from an employer who filed for bankruptcy and fled owing me over $400 in wages. And the Confederate flag was a gift from the great-grandson of a former president. I gave him a fire opal and a cannonball that I suspect was from the Battle of San Jacinto that I found in the woods and that my mother would not let me keep, as she said it could be armed. I do not display them. They are stored securely. I'm a Confederate Civil War reenactor, so I own one just to have in battle. I also own the uniform and stuff. For me, it's a symbol of all the men who died fighting for what they believed in, regardless of what their beliefs may have been. I have one, and yes, I don't like black people. I don't own one yet, but I like the design. As part of my Southern heritage, yes, there are several in my house and with on Civil War memorabilia, stickers on my car, and one worked into one of my tattoos. I have a Confederate flag as well as an American flag, both displayed proudly on the walls of my bedroom. The reason for the Confederate flag? Well, I like the idea that the Confederacy stood up and said no to the government, even though the main issue here as far as I am aware was slavery, which I do not support. The Confederate flag to me embodies classic American spirit, where we will bend, but at some point we will fight back and give our all to a cause that we support. We will stand up and fight, even our own government, even our own brothers if the need is there. The Confederate flag is a reminder to me that as an American, there is a very clear line that once crossed will be met with retaliation, and we as Americans, and I as somebody from the Wild West, still embody the rebel spirit that has, among many other things, made us the greatest country in the whole world. I like flags. It's only a small one, but I have a bunch hanging from the ceiling in my childhood bedroom. It's next to a pirate flag. We fly ours more for heritage than anything. Let me explain. We don't fly ours to offend people or support slavery or to be xenophobe or anything like that. It's more that the meaning has changed over time. From racism to heritage. It represents, to us at least, the South, small towns, close communities and Southern hospitality. When you see one flying here, it's more they are proud to be from the South, not offend people. After the war, the flag wasn't really used much anymore, until the civil rights movement. Then the flag gained popularity again to oppose equal rights for blacks. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.